It is clear that this pandemic has affected us in so many ways that we are still guessing when and how it will end and what kind of world we'll have to live in from now on. However, I know that we all hope that next year's edition of the summit can be conducted in person, so we have the opportunity to talk and share ideas directly with each other as we used to. The oil and gas industry has been one of the hardest hit sectors worldwide in terms of worker infections, falling demand and prices, and reduction of operations. This is why the topic of this panel, project execution and supply chain resilience, is critical to understand the real impact of the pandemic in our local industry and the options our panelists foresee to reactivate and restructure the industry in coming years. Let's proceed with our first question for Joel and Carlos. Please, you have 3 minutes each to answer. The question is, how has the impact of the recent drop in oil prices, payment delays from Pemex, and industry uncertainty affected the Mexican supply chain? Please, Carlos.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Antonio. The impact is very significant. I believe that there are alternatives to take emerging but practical solutions. It seems to me that it's very challenging to presume that Pemex faces the current situation alone. There is much talk about the Make Pemex Stronger, but I believe that the government should also promote the institutions can help Pemex get ahead with suppliers' commitment. There may not be a great appetite for investors to put money in Pemex, but there are many investors willing to invest doing business with development banks, for example. A strategic way that can be further increase the capacity and support of the development banks. For example, NAFIN currently has had a successful productive chain program. Our proposal will be the development banks can promote a new fund, for example, with a totally private investment, which has the function of solving, factoring the productive chain programs, etc. And that in this way, a broader spectrum of suppliers can receive payments on time. It can start with a program in the logistic sector, because it's more easy. And they promote it, the other areas. It was the solution for payment suppliers with a private money and organize the development banks. And as this idea, I believe that as those scenarios can be built with support to Pemex suppliers. And I believe the only unacceptable thing is not to solve its situation. Regarding prices, in our case, or investment model, I believe this should not stop in infrastructure, because the deficit in downstream, in midstream, in Latin America is very high, rather than price. What the most influence the decision in investment, I think, is the regulation more than the oil price.
Estás en mute.
Okay, Antonio, you want me to elaborate on that?
Please, Joel, yes.
Okay, thank you. So I think that the oil and gas industry globally has been facing a challenge even from the beginning of the year, before the COVID-19 started. I come from managing corporations in the Eastern Hemisphere, and we already saw that effect in those places of the world, and it's not different to what is happening in Mexico. So I believe that the only way to overcome this challenge is creativity, innovation, technology, to be able to align to the new way of running business, to continue being profitable, and to continue to deliver financially as our customers and our shareholders expect. One of the assurance that I see that is is bringing to the table the situation in Mexico is that the energy supply is a high demand in this part of the world. And Mexico continued to have the same focus of maximizing the productivity of the reservoirs, developing new exploration plays, and adding all kind of mechanisms to help operators and service companies to reach this goal. So one of the commitments I see is that the government is still working to strengthen the industry led by Pemex, and it's important to take this as an opportunity. Definitely each challenge we faced in the industry in the past, and we might face some more challenges in the future, we have to take it as an opportunity and find the common ground between service companies, operators, government, and regulation entities to make the best out of it and deliver the ultimate target, that is the supply of energy to our country and to the world. That's from my side.
Thank you. Now I have a second question for you two. The second question is, what are the measures supply chain players can take to remain ready and competitive following the oil price drop that arrived with the COVID-19? Please, Carlos or Joel, who wants to answer first? Joel?
Thank you, Antonio. Joel, thank you.
Okay.
We continue to identify opportunities in the midstream and downstream, although there are challenges with the oil price. The world also offers unique opportunities to develop infrastructure. For example, low interest rates. Players like us are a place in depth for infrastructure development at very low rates, at very long terms. It's a great opportunity to develop storage infrastructure, pipeline, industrial processing, etc. At this time, our investors are not participating in the upstream, but we continue to participate in the entire chain related to service, infrastructure, logistics, and transformation. I believe that this stage of the COVID will be brief, and the birth of the new post-COVID era will come in May 2021, and that is what we must prepare for this next 6 months. Give all companies the opportunity to better prepare the financial part in technology, in infrastructure, in sophisticated business models. COVID will be overcome soon. We should not invest so much time to understand what is happening today, but we must work in the new opportunities. I believe that this time should help us to reinvent in more competitive companies. All of the companies that will appear in Fortune 500 in the next decade, for example, at this time have not yet been created. We are going for a new vision, a new horizons. Thank you, Antonio.
Thank you, Carlos. Now, Joel.
Okay. Yeah, so adding to that, I think in the supply chain to secure this, we have seen good examples of countries in the Eastern Hemisphere like India. India has been intensively working in promoting the ICB. So they look at positive ways to strengthen the local manufacturing, to implement it into the industry, mainly the oil and gas, to maximize the local utilization. We should be replicating that model. Why? Because logistics worldwide are challenged right now to move assets, equipment, technology from other places in the world. And I believe that's a good way to transform the way we do business, to start pushing for more local technology development and construction. That's going to help to ease the process for supply chain. As well, the companies working and providing services and goods need to look at different sources of funding. The cash flow is a key to keep sustained right now the business. So it's important to create and to look at ways to do alliances, technology development, JVs, partnerships that will maximize the cash flow for those companies involved in the supply chain process. As well, what I have learned so far during this crisis in both sides of the planet, in the Eastern Hemisphere and now in the American continent, is people. We need to put the trust in the people, because people is going to be able to come with those ideas, innovation, and applications that will help us to overcome this challenge. So I think those are the 3 key factors to keep looking at it to go out of this challenge together.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Now, I have a set of questions for Karla and Sonia. First question, 3 minutes each, please. Which projects illustrate the ability of oil field services and equipment suppliers to deliver on time and on budget in 2020, and how was this achieved in a challenging operating environment? Please, Sonia?
Thank you, Antonio. Definitely what we have been going through in 2020 is something that nobody was expecting, right? We have the COVID, we have the crisis, but at the end of the day, here we are, almost finishing 2020. And this shows how resilient our industry is. These challenges are seen as an opportunities in the service companies, right? We were forced somehow to expedite the implementation of a new operating model that is based in performance, that is based in efficiencies, and that is supported by digital. Of course, when we talk about digital, there is a big spectrum that refers to it. And I will give you some examples of what we are doing with the support of digital to be more efficient and to be able to deliver these projects in time and on budget. Something very important, COVID, we know is here to stay for a little bit longer. So how long, we don't know. So something that is extremely important is that we work with our people, but not just with our people, but also our suppliers, all the service companies and the customers to create a COVID culture in our industry. This has allowed us to survive during this year and will help us to continue operating during the years to come. When it comes to specific examples, I can tell you that we have never stopped training our people. And this is why today we are able to still support the operations with the expertise that we have. Just to give you an idea, 60% of the drilling operations worldwide where Schlumberger is involved is being done remotely. What does it mean? It means that you have less people on location, so you have less exposure. You are not compromising service delivery because you have all the support from the technical experts in a way that is being managed remotely. We also need to understand that this is not just about how we can help our customers, but also how we can work together with our suppliers. During this period, something that has helped us to continue our operations and to be able to deliver is that we have used the digital capabilities. We do audits to our suppliers, to our manufacturing centers, and to the preparation of our equipment before it goes to location. Something that has given us very good results is we have centralized purchases and importation processes and exportation from a hub located in Colombia. This may sound something like, why are you doing that centralized? Well, this gives us more efficient processes because you have a better view of what is happening in the different locations worldwide. We are also working in line with the contractors. We are not just looking at short-term approach, but mid and long-term, where we can create partnerships and collaboration that can help us to go through these difficult times. And last but not least, the part referring to forecasting and planning is extremely important. We have incorporated planning as part of our supply chain, so we can take a look to demand, sourcing, logistics, importations, material management in a more holistic approach, and we can see this as an ecosystem which allows us to have efficiencies and to have better performance, even though we are going through these difficult challenges.
Thank you, Sonia. Your comments, Karla, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Antonio. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizers again for having us in this interesting panel and for the opportunity to interact in a very diverse and balanced panel. So thank you for that. I appreciate that we continue the dialogue around the supply chain and suppliers development arena. So going to your question, Antonio, I think that from Shell perspective, we as an operator, for us it's very important to have a positive contribution in the countries where we operate. And I think that one of the main areas where we can have this positive contribution and more tangible as well is focus on the suppliers development arena. So I guess that during this atypical year, like we are facing, as you mentioned, COVID, we are having also the oil price challenge the oil prices scenario. So what we have seen, what we have been trying to focus is in one is working closely with our contractors and subcontractors in Mexico, in our projects in Mexico and outside of Mexico. We have a strong safety culture and care for people culture. So we have been trying to implement more and more actions to mitigate any potential exposure for the workforce, which is critical to complete our project. So that is one area. The other one, we continue to work on the suppliers development arena, going from the tier 1, tier 2, and with a strong focus again in safety culture, also in equality and ethics and compliance. That is another one. And speaking about this difficult environment, what I would say is that in the case of Shell, we have always been looking at Mexico as a potential strategic sourcing opportunity, because Mexico has been always be critical in the supply chain. We foresee a lot of opportunities, and even more now. Recently, we were looking at some numbers where Mexico, and going to Joel's point before, it's becoming once again very competitive if we compare it with China. So to give you an example, we have seen some numbers that where in the past China was more competitive. Right now we have seen that they are in $100,000 per metric ton for some to manufacture some items, and right now Mexico is in average cost of $800. So that once again is confirming for us in Shell and for many operators, I guess, that Mexico remains as a very good opportunity, not just to have as Dr. Marcos said also before, to have a reliable supply chain in country, but also looking for opportunities for export in the following years.
Thank you, Karla. I have a second question for you two. You have, please, 3 minutes each. What steps could operators take to transform commercial relationships with oilfield services and equipment suppliers to ensure a well-functioning supply chain that can support Pemex production targets, as well as the upstream plans of the private operators? Sonia, you want to be the first?
Yes, thank you, Antonio. You know, this is very interesting, and what I'm going to say may sound extremely basic, but actually we need to go back to basics. It's extremely important to have effective tools that allow us to have a good planning, forecasting, and understanding of the activity, so we can start to prioritize, right? Many people mentioned before the importance in this environment of collaboration, open communication. It's important to understand what are the priorities of the operators, so we can do the same exercise with the suppliers. Because at the end of the day, we want to have an end-to-end process that fulfill the needs of the customers, of the marketplace. It's extremely important to share information, and it has to be reciprocal. It has to be 2 ways, where we can share information that is strategic, tactical, and operational. Because the reality is that there is no excess of resources in the current environment. In the past, we used to have excess of resources in every single location, but with the current environment, it has been restricted. So it's very important for the supply chain organizations and for the to invest. So when you create an environment of collaboration and open communication, is easier to go together in the same direction. At the end of the day, the key point is the total cost of ownership. When you want to optimize, it's not simply go and reduce cost or simply go and review the price list. What we need to do in this new environment is work as a team, work together, and come up with solutions that can create efficiencies, better performance, and at the end, we'll have as a result of the objectives that we want to achieve as a team. Because in this is no longer about the customer, the operator, the service company, and the supplier. It's about an ecosystem that we manage as a team towards the same objective.
Thank you. Sonia? Karla, do you have a comment, please?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Antonio. So yes, for us, I think is more, everything is about having more resilient supply chains. So for us in Shell, it is critical to have a long partner relationship with our suppliers, vendors, contractors, and subcontractors. And I agree with Sonia that it is about having a trustful relationship, about having an environment of collaboration, communication, and having a transparent communication channel between both parties. It is a win-win situation. I think it's also about having the synergies in place, the right synergies, about having more efficiencies. I think that under this current environment, it gives us the opportunity to look for more cost reduction opportunities, but especially it's not just related to price. It is related to the scope of the service. About, I think in Shell we have learned a lot that we need to hear and listen to suppliers, right? The suppliers are in many cases the experts, the subject matter experts in some kind of services, in some to provide best fit for purpose solutions. So I think that we need to hear them, and we need to be able to implement some improvements in our projects. So at the end of the day, we can have a better end-to-end process. We can have a more competitive supply chain, and it is about having that a strong relationship. In the other hand, what we have seen is that in some areas, perhaps not just related to upstream, but also in downstream, what we have seen is that making sure that we can have the global expertise from some suppliers, and making sure that they have the right partner locally that knows, that have the know-how locally about how to operate, and everything that gives us a better solution in the Mexico market.
Okay, thank you, Karla.
Thank you.
I have a third question for you too, please. Which types of oil field services and equipment do you expect to be the main demand drivers for the Mexican oil and gas supply chain in 2021? Sonia, you have a comment, please?
Yes, Antonio. So, in 2021, we see a light increase on offshore activities and continuation of land operations. So when you think about downstream, midstream, and upstream, activity will continue. And when you think in that perspective, I believe that we are going to see a high demand when it comes to transportation, logistics associated to transportation, retail associated to material management, and solutions. I think that the IT is going to become a key factor here. We are looking, and I believe that the market is looking for integrated solutions. In addition to what we are doing in the day-to-day operations in the three arenas, right? It's about solutions that can make the system more efficient. It's also extremely important to keep in mind that there has been a decrease on supplier portfolio in the north side of the country and also in the south part of Veracruz. So it's extremely important to understand the demand and the offer that we have in the market. But for sure, the way that I see it is that we will have a high demand due to the constraints that we have when it comes to, as I said, transportation, material handling, IT, and integrated solutions for the market where we are.
Thank you, Sonia. Your comment, Karla, please.
Yes, for sure. So I will start with the downstream retail. So I think that we are continue to see many opportunities in that space for local suppliers. So to give you some examples, one is logistics of road transportation, and the main challenge that we have is around safety standards, safety and security standards, the other one is around infrastructure. I think that we still see many opportunities in that space and many challenges as well to make sure that we receive the molecule in the best way possible where the customer need it. So that is another one. We are seeing also opportunities in the, for instance, in the retail visual identity, we call it, which is what we usually use for the brand and communication in the retail side. We are working right now with a local supplier on that perspective. Originally, we were going to import 97% of the components from other country, and we decided to focus on the supplier development locally. We have had great outcomes. So right now we are manufacturing most of the components in Mexico. I think it's like 95% at least. So we continue to see that growth. We have some additional projects, even uniforms, and we are buying, to give you some idea, like 50,000 pieces, including safety shoes and uniforms aligned to the Shell catalog. And we are in those two cases, we are exploring eventually the opportunity for these vendors to explore outside of, to export for Shell outside of Mexico. There is in the retail space, of course, that we are buying equipment. We have a very good contracts in place also with EPCM companies and FMC companies, maintenance for the retail sites, with companies that are based in Mexico and fully operated by Mexican workforce. The other opportunity that I foresee for Mexico is in the fabrication space. So we have seen already very good examples, not just in Shell, but also other operators, where we have developed projects in Mexico with very good outcomes in terms of quality, safety. And I'm talking not just about deep shallow water projects, but also onshore projects like petrochemical modular plants. That is another very good opportunity to explore in Mexico, spools, fabricator, line pipes. That is another area that I think that we may have some opportunities. And in the future, my dream is that eventually we can start to work a little bit more on the fabrication arena, but more for more for deep water, even integration of or installation of some equipments in the platforms. Shipyards, that is another area or opportunity. Dismantling platforms, there is another one related to fabrication. And in the for our projects in deep water, I continue to see, of course, the services. We are currently working with a company. We use a lot the model of integrators. So we have different packages that they are managing related to all the different services, including logistics, helicopters and vessels, supply vessels, and some others. So I think that for now, at least for 2021, those are the main areas that we could continue to explore.
Very, very interesting, Karla. Thank you very much.
Thank
now
you.
I have a question for all of you. You have 2 minutes each to answer, please. The question is, what are the main issues facing the creation of a stronger, more consolidated supply chain in Mexico? If we can start with Carlos.
Yes, thank you, Antonio. Yes, congratulations to all participating in this panel. It has been a honor to participate with you, Karla, Sonia, Joel, Antonio, and thank you to the Mexico business team. This is a great time to attract investment and build a better business than we had before COVID. In our case, our main bet is energy. However, we have moments of uncertainty or about the opening to the private investment in energy in Mexico. We can no change the reality. For example, we adapt and decide to be a leaders in investment in logistic infrastructure in Mexico, but we have not stopped looking the opportunities in energy. We will continue betting on Mexico in the sectors that allow investment and they complement the supply chain of the energy sector. At CAXXOR Group, National Standard, we see Mexico with a long-term vision. I'm tired of the determination to push a new frontiers in the industries in Mexico. Thank you very much, Antonio.
Okay, Joel.
Hello, Antonio. Thank you for bringing the word to me again. So one of the things I think we need to focus is the diversification and activity mix in our portfolio. We have been focused so far in the oil and gas industry. However, with the group of companies we have in CEMZA, the broader spectrum of operations and business we look at today is diversifying and is expanding to different geographies. We are looking into going and replicate the good business model we have in Mexico, in Asia, in South America, in the Middle East, in Europe and Russia. So, and we are doing it by looking at the technologies that are developed in Mexico in particular, that we can bring together and place in those locations to solve a challenge. I think that besides we continue to work with our most important customer, that is Pemex in Mexico, we are also looking at ways to collaborate with the IOCs in Mexico, with the private companies also in different locations. And I believe that by looking to the diversification and activity mix will be the best way to continue moving forward in the future.
Yes. Sonia, you have something to comment?
Yes, Antonio, I think that one of the largest opportunities to consolidate the supply chain in Mexico is partnerships, understanding the local context, understanding the market, and see how we can create partnerships that allow us to be more efficient. It's amazing that we still work in silos where we can work all together to have a better benefit for everyone and for the industry. I believe that is extremely important, going back to what Vladimir was saying in regards to diversification. I think that something that we need to start to take a look in a deeper and stronger way is definitely topics that can be aligned to the success of the industry. We need to start to talk about supply chains associated to sustainability, supply chains associated to HSE focus and quality. So creating these partnerships with companies that are aligned in the same direction will bring a supply chain that is stronger and that can support the market in Mexico. Something that is extremely important is the local content, right? As mentioned by Karla before, how Mexico has turned around is amazing. The geographical location, their commercial relationships, the labor cost is something that we can capitalize and that will contribute to the development of the industry and also the development of the country.
Karla, you have some comments, please?
Yes, thank you, Antonio. So for me, there are 5 main issues or challenge that I can share with you. One is around for me, it is still an issue, I don't think that we are where we need to yet in terms of the companies adopting the international standards in terms of, especially in terms of safety and ethics and compliance. So I think I'm aware it is a journey, but I think that we need to focus a lot of effort in that, in making sure that the leaders of the companies in Mexico can embrace those international standards. That is one. The other one is credit access. I think that we still need to work as an industry with government and all that, so the companies can actually have the access to those credits and can actually invest in more infrastructure and more equipment that can help them to compete with China, for instance, in some other areas, because we are still seeing a trend. Even when Mexico is improving the productivity, we are still seeing that if we compare with other countries like China, we are still in some disadvantage. The other one is around soft skills. I think that we still need, as an industry, and especially small and medium companies, perhaps not so much in the tier 1 and tier 2, but we need to make sure that the people that is managing those companies can develop those soft skills and do the same with their teams. And finally, I think it is about the project funnel. So what I have seen when comparing again with China is that they have fully integrated the supply chain, and we don't. So we need to live with that for now, and eventually, hopefully, we can have a fully integrated supply chain based in country with the capabilities that we need. But the other one is that they have a constant flow of projects, and we don't. So that put us again in some disadvantage, because every time that our suppliers wants to start, they need to start over and over. So I think that one potential solution for that is to make sure that they have the capability to export, so they cannot just rely on the local industry, but also diversify the customer base.
Thank you, Karla, and thank you all for your clear and precise response. Now we are going to open a brief session of answers to answer some of the questions from the audience. We have just 6 minutes. The first question I have received is, this is for all of you. What would you consider to be the most interesting points in common between the perspective of operators and the perspective of suppliers and service providers when it comes to the future of Mexico's supply chain? I don't know, it was clear, the question? Who wants to answer first?
Can you please repeat the question, Antonio, for me?
See, what would you consider to be the most interesting points in common between the perspective of operators and the perspective of suppliers and service providers when it comes to the future of Mexico's supply chains? Somebody.
Okay, I have answered that on the chat, so you allow me, I can elaborate on that.
Please.
So some decades ago, I recall the relationship with the operators and service providers was more of a focus on a business partnership. It was more a collaboration, partnership focus. And I think I believe we need to go and start looking at ways to go back to those kind of approaches where we focus more on the collaborative environment rather than a price cost structure, right? So that is going to allow the operators to continue to have the state-of-the-art technology and supplies, while also we contribute to create value with the local and country manufacturing and supply in Mexico. So Mexico is a very powerful machinery of manufacturing, engineering, supply. It's very comparable to China and India. And I believe that if we look at ways to do those partnerships, those JVs, those collaboration agreements between the major, super major, and middle operators in Mexico and the local supply chain and manufacturing companies, it will really continue to help to maximize the return on investment for the operators, and it will always also allow the service providers to continue to make profits. And it's going to be a really sustainable win-to-win collaboration environment.
Okay, thank you. I have a second question from the audience. Which would you consider to be the most urgent tensions and contradictions to be resolved between the incentives and goals of operators and the incentives and goals of suppliers and service providers in Mexico? I don't know, do you want me to repeat the question? Or somebody wants to answer this question? Sonia? Would you like to comment something?
Yes, Antonio, I think that definitely we need to work on an alignment between the different components in the system, right? There is a misalignment in what is the final objective that we want to achieve. And the only way to reduce that misalignment and to make sure that we all achieve the same benefit, if you will, is to have a clear communication of where are we heading, why we are not aligning our objectives is because we don't have a clear communication between what is strategic, what is tactical, and what is operational. So if you have operators, service companies, and supply chains heading all in a different direction, there is going to be a discrepancy in the way that we operate in the marketplace.
Thank you very much. Somebody who wants to do a comment on this last question? Okay, let me see. I have the last question would be, if for all of you, what are the most important lessons that you have learned in the development of local suppliers and supply chains in states such as Tabasco, Campeche, Veracruz, and Tamaulipas?
Antonio, I will go ahead, please, Sonia.
No, go ahead.
Please. Carlos, who wants to answer this?
I think that
Okay,
was going.
Yes, I want to share some of this experience. I don't have that experience in Mexico, but I have seen that experience in Oman, in the United Arab Emirates, in Saudi Arabia, in Iraq. So what I have learned to develop those local suppliers or the in-country value is that we have to set a number of rules and metrics that will allow to transfer technology, development, competency, and abilities to the local companies to in a pipeline of the next, let's say, 5 to 15 years, they will be self-sustainable and they will reach those international standards that any super major IOC is expecting. So I'm not familiar yet with the existence of those programs in Mexico, but I will for sure look forward to look into that. In-country value development that will be focused on those local suppliers of this specific area, because Tabasco, Campeche, Veracruz, and Tamaulipas are the oil capitals of the country. So we need to work into that. I can share lessons learned from the
I think
later on again.
So your microphone is closed, I think. Joel?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So I will elaborate again. So what I was saying is that I have seen the way this development of local suppliers, of local partners, has been done in countries like Oman, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Iraq. Mm-hmm. And those in-country value development plans include the transfer of knowledge, transfer of assets, and transfer of all the soft skills to the local companies and suppliers. So we help them in a pipeline of 5 to 15 years to reach the standards of the super majors and the major private companies. And that's going to become a legacy in terms of development and technology that is always translating to benefits to the end user, right? So I'm not sure, I'm not familiar yet with what has been done so far in the south of Mexico, but I can share some of those in-country development metrics that are applied in those countries that I just mentioned as an example of how it can be done in all these states. And I think I can share that information with Pedro Alcalá. He's the one writing those questions on a separate email or something, because it's going to take more time.
Thank you. I think our time is up. Thank you all for your valuable remarks, and to the audience for the attention you have done with this panel. We expect to see you next year in a different form of communication. Thank you very much.